The neon lights of Las Vegas pulsed like a fever dream, their electric hum drowning out the ache in Mia's chest. She leaned against the bar, the tang of whiskey sharp on her tongue, her camera slung over her shoulder like a lifeline. At 28, Mia had chased stories through deserts and dive bars, but nothing prepared her for this. A reckless bet that left her heart exposed. The bet was simple. One game of poker, one night of stakes, and if she lost, she'd owe a stranger a favor. She lost. Badly. And now Lena, the bartender with eyes like a summer storm, was calling it in. The bar smelled of spilled beer and cheap perfume, the kind of place where dreams came to die or be reborn. Mia's breath hitched as Lena leaned closer, her blonde hair catching the dim light, her voice a low teasing drawl. "So what's it gonna be, Shutterbug? You gonna pay up?" The air crackled with something unspoken, something dangerous. Mia's pulse raced, her fingers tightening around her glass. She wasn't ready for this. Not for the way Lena's gaze pinned her in place, or the way her own heart betrayed her with a longing she'd buried for years. Mia had always been the observer, capturing life through her lens. Gritty street corners, fleeting smiles, the raw edges of humanity. But Lena was a force, a 30-year-old whirlwind who poured drinks and broke hearts with equal ease. She'd seen Mia's type before. Restless, guarded, always one foot out the door. Yet something about Mia's quiet defiance, the way her brown eyes flickered with stories untold, had hooked Lena from the moment she'd walked into the bar. "You don't get it," Mia muttered, her voice rough, barely audible over the jukebox's wail. "I don't do this." She gestured vaguely between them, her cheeks flushing. Lena's laugh was soft like the clink of ice in a glass, and it sent a shiver down Mia's spine. "Oh, honey," Lena said, wiping down the counter, her fingers brushing Mia's for a split second. "You're already in too deep." The night unspooled in fragments. The clatter of poker chips, the burn of tequila shots, the way Lena's smile felt like a dare. Mia had come to Vegas to shoot a photo series on the city's underbelly, but now she was the one exposed, her carefully built walls crumbling under Lena's gaze. The bet had been a lark, a way to kill time. But losing meant facing something she'd avoided her whole life, herself. As the bar emptied out, the air grew heavy with possibility. Lena slid a napkin across the counter, her handwriting bold and deliberate. "One kiss. That's the price." Mia's stomach twisted, a mix of fear and want. She'd spent years running from feelings like this, from the whispers in her head that said she wasn't like other girls. Growing up in a small Ohio town, she'd learned to hide, to blend in, to keep her heart locked tight. But here in the chaos of Vegas, with Lena's breath warm against her ear, hiding wasn't an option. "You're scared," Lena said, not a question, just a fact. Her voice was gentle but firm, like she could see right through Mia's bravado. Mia wanted to deny it, to laugh it off, but the truth sat heavy in her throat. She was scared, of what it meant, of what came next, of the way her body leaned toward Lena like a flower chasing sunlight. The desert sunrise was creeping over the horizon, painting the bar in hues of gold and pink. Mia's camera sat untouched, its lens blind to the moment unfolding. "What if I can't?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Lena's hand found hers, steady and warm, grounding her in the chaos. "Then we figure it out together," Lena said, her eyes soft but unyielding. "But you gotta take the shot, Mia. You can't keep running." The bar was silent now, save for the faint hum of the neon sign outside. Mia's heart pounded, each beat a question she wasn't ready to answer. But as Lena leaned closer, her lips a breath away, Mia knew one thing for certain. This was no longer just about a bet. It was about a truth she could no longer outrun. The air between them was thick, charged with the weight of unspoken words. Mia's fingers trembled as she traced the edge of the napkin, Lena's handwriting staring back at her like a challenge. One kiss. 2 words that felt like a cliff's edge. The bar's jukebox had gone quiet, leaving only the faint buzz of the neon sign and the thud of Mia's pulse in her ears. Outside, Vegas stirred awake, the strip's chaos muted by the dawn's soft glow. Lena leaned back, giving Mia space but not breaking eye contact. Her denim shirt was rolled up at the sleeves, revealing a tattoo of a sparrow in mid-flight, its wings sharp against her skin. "You don't have to," she said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "But I think you want to." The words landed like a spark, igniting something in Mia she'd spent years trying to smother. She wanted to argue, to push back, but her body betrayed her. Her breath quickened, her eyes lingered on Lena's lips. Mia stood, needing to move to break the spell. Her boots scuffed against the worn wooden floor, each step echoing in the empty bar. She stopped at the window, staring out at the city that never slept. The desert air carried the faint scent of dust and asphalt, grounding her in the moment. "I don't even know you," she said, more to herself than to Lena. But it wasn't true. She'd spent hours at this bar over the past week, watching Lena work, memorizing the way she moved. Confident, fluid, like she owned every inch of the room. Lena slid off her stool and joined Mia at the window, her reflection faint in the glass. "You know enough," she said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd lived hard and loved harder. "You know I'm not letting you off easy." There was a playful edge to her tone, but her eyes were serious, searching Mia's face for something, permission, maybe, or surrender. Mia turned, their faces inches apart now. The morning light caught the flecks of green in Lena's eyes, and Mia felt her resolve fraying. I don't know how to do this," she admitted, her voice raw, cracking like dry desert earth. She'd dated guys before, safe choices that never asked too much, never saw too much. But this was different. This was Lena, who saw her, really saw her, and didn't look away. Lena's hand brushed Mia's arm, a fleeting touch that sent a jolt through her. "You don't have to know," Lena said. "Just feel it." The words hung there, simple but seismic, and Mia felt the ground shift beneath her. She thought of her childhood, of whispered rumors and sidelong glances, of the way her mother's voice had tightened when she'd asked why two women were holding hands at the county fair. She'd learned to hide, to keep her desires locked in a box labeled wrong. But Lena was prying that box open, and Mia wasn't sure she wanted to stop her. The bar's door creaked open, and a delivery guy shuffled in, breaking the moment. The clatter of crates and the sharp scent of fresh lemons filled the air. Lena stepped back, her smile crooked but warm. "Saved by the bell," she teased, but her eyes didn't leave Mia's. "You're not off the hook, though." Mia exhaled, a shaky laugh escaping her. "You're relentless," she said, but there was no bite in it. She grabbed her camera, needing something familiar to anchor her. The weight of it in her hands was grounding, but her mind was still spinning. She snapped a quick shot of the bar. Lena's silhouette against the window, the morning light spilling over her like liquid gold. The image felt like a confession, one she wasn't ready to voice. As Lena chatted with the delivery guy, Mia slipped out into the morning heat. The strip was waking up, tourists stumbling out of casinos, the air thick with the smell of fried food and regret. She walked aimlessly, her camera bumping against her chest, her thoughts a tangle of fear and want. Lena's napkin was still in her pocket, the words "one kiss" burning against her thigh. She didn't know if she could do it, but she knew one thing. She couldn't walk away. Not yet. The Vegas sun beat down on Mia's shoulders, relentless and unforgiving, as she wandered the strip. Her camera hung heavy around her neck, but for once she didn't lift it. The world felt too raw, too unfiltered, like she was seeing it without a lens for the first time. The clatter of slot machines spilled out from open casino doors, mixing with the shouts of street vendors and the distant wail of a siren. Her mind kept circling back to Lena, her crooked smile, the way her voice seemed to wrap around Mia like a warm blanket. She stopped at a small cafe, the kind of place that felt like an oasis amid the chaos. The air smelled of fresh coffee and warm pastries, a stark contrast to the bar's stale beer haze. Mia slid into a booth, her fingers brushing the napkin in her pocket. "One kiss." The words felt like a pulse, steady and insistent. She pulled it out, smoothing it on the table, staring at Lena's handwriting as if it held answers she didn't have. Her phone buzzed, a text from her editor. "Need those Vegas shots by Friday. Don't get lost out there." Mia sighed. the weight of her work pressing against the chaos in her heart. She'd come to Vegas for a story, not for whatever this was. But Lena had shifted everything like a fault line cracking open. Mia wasn't naive. She knew what she felt, had always known deep down. But knowing and acting were two different beasts, and the latter terrified her. The cafe door jingled and Mia's heart stuttered as Lena walked in. Her denim shirt swapped for a loose white tee. Her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She spotted Mia instantly, her smile equal parts mischief and warmth. "Fancy meeting you here," Lena said, sliding into the booth across from her. The scent of her citrus perfume cut through the coffee aroma, and Mia's chest tightened. "Did you follow me?" Mia asked, half joking, but her voice was unsteady. Lena's laugh was soft like wind chimes on a quiet day. "Nah, I just know this place has the best coffee. And maybe I hoped you'd be here." Her eyes held Mia's, steady and unapologetic, and Mia felt the air shift again, heavy with possibility. They ordered coffee, the clink of mugs and the hiss of the espresso machine filling the silence. Lena leaned forward, her elbows on the table, her gaze piercing. "So what's the deal, Mia? You keep running but you're still here. Why?" The question was direct, cutting through Mia's defenses like a knife through butter. Mia's fingers tightened around her mug, the heat grounding her. "I don't know," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared. Of this. Of you." The words slipped out before she could stop them, raw and unfiltered. Lena's expression softened, but she didn't look away. "Good," she said, her voice low. "Scared means it's real." The cafe buzzed around them, but it felt like they were alone, caught in a bubble of their own making. Mia's mind flashed to her past. Awkward high school crushes she'd buried. The way she'd thrown herself into her work to avoid facing herself. She'd built a life of safe distances, but Lena was closing that distance inch by inch. "Tell me something real," Lena said, her voice gentle but firm. "Something you don't tell anyone." Mia's throat tightened, her eyes stinging. She thought of her mother's disappointed sigh when she'd moved to New York, of the way her small-town friends had drifted away when she stopped pretending to fit in. "I've always felt wrong," she said finally, her voice cracking. "Like I'm not supposed to want what I want." Lena's hand found hers under the table, her touch warm and steady. "You're not wrong," she said, her voice fierce. "You're just you. And that's enough." The words hit Mia like a wave, breaking something open inside her. She wanted to believe it, wanted to lean into Lena's certainty, but the fear was still there, clawing at her edges. The sun climbed higher, bathing the cafe in golden light. Mia's coffee had gone cold, but she didn't care. For the first time, she didn't want to run. She wanted to stay to see where this led, even if it scared her to death. The cafe's hum faded as Mia held Lena's gaze, her hand still warm under Lena's touch. The world outside, the strip's neon glare, the relentless churn of tourists, felt miles away. Here in this small booth, with the scent of coffee and Lena's citrus perfume curling around her, Mia felt anchored. But the fear still gnawed at her, a quiet voice whispering that this was too much, too fast, too real. Lena leaned back, breaking the contact but not the connection. Her eyes were soft, but there was a challenge in them, a spark that dared Mia to step forward. "You're thinking too hard," Lena said, her voice teasing but kind. "I can practically hear the gears turning." Mia let out a shaky laugh, the sound raw in her throat. "Yeah, well, that's me. Always overthinking." Lena's smile widened, and she reached for her coffee, her fingers brushing the mug's handle with a casual grace that made Mia's chest ache. "Tell you what," Lena said, her tone light but deliberate. "Let's get out of here. Somewhere quieter. You me, no bets, no pressure. Just us." The invitation hung in the air, simple but weighted, like a door creaking open. Mia hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of her camera strap. The weight of it was familiar, a shield against the world. But Lena wasn't the world. She was something else entirely, something Mia couldn't capture in a frame. "Where?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lena's eyes lit up, like she'd been waiting for that question. "Somewhere you can breathe," she said. "Trust me." They left the cafe, stepping into the Vegas heat. The air was thick with the smell of hot pavement and distant cigarette smoke, but Lena's presence cut through it, grounding Mia. They walked, Lena leading the way with a confidence that made Mia feel both safe and unsteady. The strip gave way to quieter streets, the kind of places tourists rarely saw. Dusty lots, faded signs, the hum of air conditioners in the distance. Lena stopped at a small park, an unexpected patch of green in the desert sprawl. A single bench sat under a scraggly tree, the leaves rustling in the faint breeze. "This is my spot," Lena said, settling onto the bench, her voice soft but proud. "When the bar gets too loud, I come here. Clears my head." Mia sat beside her, the wood warm beneath her, the air carrying the faint scent of dry grass and freedom. They were quiet for a moment, the silence comfortable but charged. Mia's camera rested in her lap, but she didn't lift it. For once, she didn't need to hide behind it. Lena tilted her head back, closing her eyes against the sun. "You ever just sit still?" she asked, her voice lazy but pointed. Mia snorted, the sound more honest than she meant it to be. "Not really. Too much to see, too much to do." Lena opened one eye, her lips curving. "Maybe you're looking at the wrong things." The words landed softly, but they hit hard. Mia felt her breath catch, the truth of it sinking in. She'd spent her life chasing moments, framing them, but never living them. Not like this. The park was quiet, save for the distant hum of traffic and the soft rustle of leaves. Lena's hand rested on the bench, inches from Mia's, and the space between them felt alive, electric. "I'm not good at this," Mia said suddenly, her voice rough. "At feeling things. Letting people in." Lena turned to her, her expression unreadable but kind. "You don't have to be good at it," she said. "You just have to try." Mia's eyes stung and she looked away, focusing on the horizon where the desert met the sky. She thought of her past, of the walls she'd built, of the way she'd always run from anything that felt too big. But sitting here, with Lena's quiet strength beside her, she didn't want to run. She wanted to stay, to lean into the fear, to see what was on the other side. Lena's fingers brushed hers, tentative but sure. "You're not alone in this, you know," she said, her voice barely audible. "I'm scared too." The admission was a gift, raw and real, and it broke something open in Mia. She turned, meeting Lena's gaze, and for the first time she felt like she could breathe. The park's quiet wrapped around Mia like a cocoon, the distant hum of Vegas fading into a soft murmur. Lena's hand rested beside hers on the bench, their fingers so close she could feel the warmth radiating from Lena's skin. The air smelled of dry grass and sun-warmed earth, a stark contrast to the strip's artificial haze. Mia's heart thudded, each beat a question she was finally ready to ask. Lena tilted her head, her blonde hair catching the sunlight, her eyes searching Mia's face. "You're still thinking," she said, her voice soft but teasing. "I can see it." Mia laughed, the sound rough but honest, like it had been trapped in her chest too long. "Can't help it," she said. "It's who I am." But even as she said it, she felt the shift inside her, the slow unraveling of the walls she'd built. Lena's smile was small, knowing. "Tell me something," she said, leaning closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "What's the one shot you've never taken?" The question caught Mia off guard, slicing through her defenses. She thought of her camera, of the thousands of moments she'd captured, grief, joy, chaos, but never her own. Never the truth of who she was. "I don't know," Mia said, her voice cracking. She looked down at her hands, at the camera in her lap, its lens silent and unseeing. "Maybe this." She gestured vaguely between them, her cheeks flushing. Lena's laugh was soft, like the rustle of leaves above them, and it made Mia's chest ache. "Good answer," Lena said, her eyes warm but steady. "So take it." The words were a challenge, a dare, and Mia felt her breath hitch. She'd spent her life framing other people's stories, but this was hers. The fear was still there, sharp and cold, but so was the want, warm and insistent, pulling her forward. Lena's hand moved, her fingers brushing Mia's, and the touch was electric, grounding her in the moment. The park was still, save for the faint chirp of a distant bird and the soft creak of the bench. Mia's pulse raced, her mind spinning with memories of whispered secrets in her childhood bedroom, of the way her heart had raced when she'd seen girls like Lena but never dared to look too long. She'd told herself it was safer to stay behind the lens, to keep her heart out of focus. But Lena was in sharp relief, real and unignorable. "I don't know how to do this," Mia said, her voice barely audible. Lena's fingers tightened around hers, steady and sure. "You don't have to know," Lena said, her voice fierce with conviction. "You just have to be here. With me." The words broke something open in Mia. A flood of longing and fear and hope all at once. She leaned forward, her breath shaky, her eyes locked on Lena's. The space between them was a chasm, but it was also a bridge, and Mia was tired of standing still. Lena's lips parted slightly, her breath warm and uneven, and Mia felt the world narrow to this moment. The heat of the sun, the scent of Lena's perfume, the way her heart felt like it might burst. Their lips met, tentative at first like a question, then deeper, surer like an answer. The kiss was soft but searing, a collision of everything Mia had run from and everything she wanted. Lena's hand cupped her face, her thumb brushing Mia's cheek, and Mia felt tears prick her eyes, not from sadness but from the sheer weight of feeling seen. When they pulled back, the world rushed in, the hum of traffic, the rustle of leaves, the distant laughter of strangers. But Mia didn't care. She looked at Lena, her vision blurred with tears, and saw the same raw emotion mirrored in her eyes. "That was worth losing a bet for," Lena said, her voice husky, her smile crooked but real. Mia laughed, the sound light and free like a weight had lifted. For the first time she didn't need her camera to feel alive. She had this Lena, the park, the kiss that changed everything. And she wasn't running anymore. The kiss lingered on Mia's lips, a warmth that spread through her like wildfire. The park around them felt suspended, the air heavy with the scent of dry grass and the faint hum of Vegas in the distance. Lena's hand was still on her cheek, her thumb tracing soft circles, grounding Mia in a moment she never wanted to end. Her heart pounded, not with fear now, but with something new, something alive. Lena's eyes were bright, a mix of mischief and tenderness. "Told you it'd be worth it," she said, her voice low, teasing. Mia laughed, the sound shaky but real, her cheeks flushed with heat. "Your trouble," she said, but there was no edge to it, only a lightness she hadn't felt in years. Lena grinned, leaning back on the bench, her arm brushing Mia's. "The best kind," she replied, her tone warm with promise. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across the park. Mia's camera sat untouched in her lap, but for once she didn't need it. The moment was too big, too real to be captured in a frame. She looked at Lena, at the way her hair glowed in the sunlight, at the sparrow tattoo peeking out from her sleeve, and felt a surge of something she couldn't name, hope, maybe, or courage. "So what now?" Mia asked, her voice soft but steady. Lena tilted her head, her smile softening. "Now we figure it out," she said. "No bets, no games. Just us." The simplicity of it hit Mia hard, like a door swinging open to a place she'd never dared to go. She'd spent her life running, from her small-town past, from the truth of who she was, but sitting here with Lena's warmth beside her, she didn't want to run anymore. They sat in silence for a while, the park's quiet wrapping around them like a blanket. The air carried the faint scent of dust and freedom, and Mia let herself breathe it in. She thought of her photos, of the stories she'd chased, of the way she'd always kept herself one step removed. But Lena had changed that, had pulled her into the frame, and Mia wasn't sure she could go back. "Tell me about you," Mia said suddenly, turning to Lena. "Something real." Lena's eyebrows lifted, surprised but pleased. She leaned back, her hands behind her head, her eyes on the sky. "Okay," she said, her voice thoughtful. "I grew up in Reno. Rough childhood, parents who didn't get me. Ran away at 16, ended up here. Bartending's my gig, but I write poetry on the side. Stuff nobody sees. She paused, her voice softening. Except maybe you now. Mia's chest tightened, the weight of Lena's words settling over her. She wanted to ask about the poetry, about the life that had shaped Lena into this fierce, tender woman, but something held her back. Instead, she reached for Lena's hand, her fingers tentative but sure. Lena's grip was warm, steady, and Mia felt a spark of courage ignite inside her. The day stretched on, the sun baking the desert earth. They walked back to the strip, their shoulders brushing, their laughter light but real. The city's chaos enveloped them. Slot machines clanging, tourists shouting, the air thick with the smell of fried food and ambition. But Mia felt untethered, like she'd stepped out of her own shadow. Lena's presence was a tether, grounding her in a way she hadn't thought possible. Back at the bar, the neon sign buzzed to life as dusk settled over Vegas. Lena slipped behind the counter, her movements fluid and sure, while Mia took her usual stool. The air smelled of whiskey and possibility, and for the first time Mia didn't feel like an observer. She was part of the story, part of this moment, and it felt like enough. As Lena poured a drink, her eyes met Mia's, a silent promise passing between them. The napkin with one kiss was still in Mia's pocket, a reminder of the bet that had changed everything. She didn't know what came next, but for the first time she was ready to find out. The bar was alive again, the hum of voices and clinking glasses filling the air as dusk painted Vegas in shades of purple and gold. Mia sat at her usual stool, her camera resting on the counter, its lens catching the neon glow. The scent of whiskey and Lena's citrus perfume mingled, grounding her in the moment. She watched Lena work, her movements a dance, pouring drinks, flashing smiles, trading quips with regulars. But every so often Lena's eyes found Mia's, and the world seemed to pause, the noise fading to a distant hum. Mia's fingers brushed the napkin in her pocket, the words "one kiss" now a talisman, a reminder of the line she'd crossed. The kiss had been a spark, igniting something she couldn't ignore. But now, in the bar's familiar chaos, doubt crept in. What did this mean? Could she really do this, step into a life she'd spent years denying? The thought made her chest tighten, her breath shallow. Lena slid a glass of water across the counter, her smile soft but knowing. "You're thinking again," she said, her voice cutting through the din. Mia laughed, the sound more nervous than she meant it to be. "Guilty," she said, sipping the water, the cold grounding her. Lena leaned closer, her elbows on the counter, her eyes searching. "Talk to me," she said. "What's going on in that head of yours?" Mia hesitated, her fingers tightening around the glass. The bar's noise pressed in, the clatter of ice, the low thrum of music, the laughter of strangers, but Lena's presence was louder, demanding her attention. "I don't know how to do this," Mia admitted, her voice low. "This us. I've never." She stopped, the words catching in her throat. She thought of her past, of the way she'd buried her feelings, of the fear that had kept her locked in a cage of her own making. Lena's hand covered hers, warm and steady. "You don't have to have it all figured out," she said, her voice fierce but gentle. "Nobody does. But you're here, Mia. That's a start." The words were simple, but they hit like a wave, washing away some of the doubt. Mia looked at Lena, at the way her eyes held no judgment, only understanding, and felt something shift inside her. The night wore on, the bar growing louder, rowdier. A group of tourists stumbled in, their voices slurred, their laughter sharp. Lena handled them with ease, but Mia saw the tension in her shoulders, the way her smile tightened. When the crowd thinned, Lena leaned against the counter, her eyes tired but warm. "This place'll kill me one day," she said, half joking, but there was truth in it. Mia felt a pang, a sudden need to protect her, to pull her away from the chaos. "Let's get out of here," Mia said, the words spilling out before she could stop them. Lena's eyebrows lifted, surprised but intrigued. "Oh yeah? Where to, Shutterbug?" Mia grinned, the nickname settling over her like a warm coat. "Anywhere," she said. "Somewhere we can just be." Lena's smile was slow, deliberate, and it made Mia's heart race. They left the bar, the night air cool against their skin, the strip's lights pulsing like a heartbeat. They walked, aimless but together, the city's chaos a backdrop to their quiet connection. Mia's camera bumped against her chest, but she didn't lift it. For once, she didn't need to capture the moment. She was living it. They ended up at a diner, the kind of place that smelled of grease and nostalgia, its neon sign flickering in the dark. They slid into a booth, their knees brushing under the table, and ordered coffee and pie. The jukebox played a soft, twanging country song, and Mia felt a strange peace settle over her. Lena's laughter filled the space, bright and unfiltered, and Mia realized she could get used to this, used to her. As the night deepened, Mia felt the weight of her fears lifting, replaced by something lighter, something real. She didn't have all the answers, but sitting across from Lena, with the taste of cherry pie on her lips and the sound of Lena's voice in her ears, she knew one thing. She wasn't alone anymore. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed softly, casting a warm glow over the cracked vinyl booth where Mia and Lena sat. The air smelled of coffee and cherry pie, the jukebox humming a low, mournful tune that felt like it belonged to another era. Mia's fingers traced the rim of her mug, her eyes on Lena, who was mid-story, her hands gesturing wildly as she recounted a disastrous shift at the bar. Her laughter was infectious, filling the space between them, and Mia felt something settle in her chest. A quiet certainty she hadn't known she could feel. The past week had been a whirlwind, a collision of fear and want that had left Mia raw but alive. The kiss in the park had changed everything, cracking open a part of her she'd kept locked away. Now, sitting across from Lena, with the taste of pie on her lips and the sound of Lena's voice wrapping around her, Mia felt like she was finally stepping into her own story. "You're staring," Lena said, her eyes glinting with mischief as she leaned forward, her elbows on the table. Mia flushed, but she didn't look away. "Can you blame me?" she said, her voice soft but bold, surprising even herself. Lena's smile widened, and she reached across the table, her fingers brushing Mia's. The touch was small but electric, a reminder of the bridge they'd crossed. The diner was nearly empty, save for a lone trucker at the counter and the waitress wiping down tables. The world outside felt distant, the strip's chaos reduced to a faint glow through the window. Mia's camera sat on the table, its lens catching the light, but she hadn't touched it all night. For once, she didn't need to hide behind it. Lena was here, real and unfiltered, and Mia wanted to be present for every second. "I'm leaving tomorrow," Mia said suddenly, the words slipping out before she could stop them. Lena's hand stilled, her eyes narrowing slightly, but she didn't pull away. "Back to New York?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with something Mia couldn't quite place. Fear, maybe, or hope. Mia nodded, her throat tight. "Got a deadline. Photos to edit, stories to tell." But the words felt hollow, like they belonged to someone else. Lena leaned back, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then she smiled, soft and sad. "You're not getting rid of me that easy," she said, her voice light but firm. "Vegas isn't that far from New York, you know." Mia's heart lifted, a fragile hope taking root. "You'd come?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lena's laugh was warm like the crackle of a fire. "For you?" "Yeah, I'd come." The words hung between them, heavy with promise. Mia thought of her life in New York, the cramped apartment, the endless hustle, the way she'd always kept people at arm's length. But Lena had slipped past her defenses, had seen her in a way no one else had. And Mia didn't want to let that go. They left the diner as dawn crept over the horizon, the sky streaked with pink and gold. The air was cool, carrying the faint scent of desert dust and possibility. They walked hand in hand, the strip waking up around them, but Mia felt like they were in their own world. Lena's fingers were warm, her grip sure, and Mia let herself lean into it, let herself believe in it. At the edge of the park where they'd kissed, Lena stopped, turning to face Mia. "You're not wrong for wanting this," she said, her voice fierce, her eyes locked on Mia's. "You're not wrong for being you." The words hit like a wave, washing away the last of Mia's doubts. She stepped closer, her hand finding Lena's cheek, and kissed her, slow, deliberate, a promise of her own. As they pulled back, the sun rose fully, bathing them in light. Mia's camera hung at her side, but she didn't need it. This moment, this feeling was hers to keep. The bet had been a spark, but what they'd found was a fire, one that would burn long after Vegas faded in the rearview. And as Lena's smile lit up the morning, Mia knew she'd never forget the kiss that started it all.